Hi everyone, today we're going to learn all about bathing a horse, what you need, and how to do it. Sometimes we give horses a bath to get them ready for a show or an event, or because, as we all know, sometimes horses just like to get dirty. The first thing you want to make sure of before you give a horse a bath is that it's a nice warm day, preferably over 70 degrees, and that you're giving your horse a bath during the warmest part of the day. The lucky one who gets a bath today is our quarter pony, Blue. The basic things you'll need for giving a horse a bath are some sort of horse shampoo, a conditioner, also made for horses, a large bathing sponge, and a sweat scraper. What I'm going to do first here is test the water, especially if it's a hot day, to make sure it's not too hot for our horse. And then I'm going to start hosing her off thoroughly, starting with her lower legs just to make sure the cool water isn't too much of a shock for her. You'll notice that I'm always pointing the hose away from her head, since most horses might be startled by the water hitting their face. I'll also point out that it's most useful to create a pressurized stream of water using your thumb on the hose, just to make sure that you're soaking them as thoroughly as you can. While you're bathing a horse, you also want to keep in mind the same things we do when we're grooming them, such as paying attention to their body language, never kneeling on the ground or being in a position where you can't quickly get out of the way, and going as slowly as you can to make sure the horse is the most comfortable they can be. Just like dogs or cats, some horses love baths and others may not enjoy it as much. You can see here that Blue is a little bit nervous about the water getting near her head, so if she starts to lift her head up or act uncomfortable, I move the hose back down and then up more gradually. And of course, during this part of the process, we want to make sure that we get both sides of her body as evenly as we can. Next, we're going to get our shampoo ready by putting a moderate amount of shampoo in our bucket and then using the hose to spray it until it's evenly dispersed and starts to suds up. If you're using a smaller size bucket, then you want to make sure that it fills up almost all the way to the top. Then we're going to take our sponge and dunk it into the water, squeezing it a few times just to make sure that it's thoroughly soaked. Now we're going to start scrubbing Blue all over with our shampoo and sponge in firm circular motions like we would with a curry comb. You'll want to redunk your sponge fairly frequently to make sure to lather up the horse as well as you can. During this part of the bath, we want to make sure to get every part of her body except for her head and tail, which we'll do at the end. The areas that tend to get forgotten about sometimes are the girth area, underbelly, and legs, which we want to make sure to clean just as well as the rest of her body. Once we're done with the shampoo, we're going to start rinsing her off. Here's where it's extra helpful to pressurize the water with your thumb as much as you can. A tip here is to spray at a downward angle, starting with the top of her body, to get all the soap from the top down. What I like to do during this process is to scrub her coat with my hand every so often to make sure I don't see any soap coming up, since any residue that's left on her can cause itchy or irritated skin. Next, we're going to use our sweat scraper as a sort of squeegee by gently scraping it over her body to get all the extra water off of her coat. Now we're going to move on to her tail by rinsing it down first. Horses' tail hair is very thick, so this tends to take a little while. You'll also see that I'm standing safely to the side of Blue here rather than standing directly behind her. What we can do next is use the leftover soap water we have to shampoo her tail by dunking her tail all the way into the bucket and then pouring the rest of it over and continuing to scrub her tail. And then finally, we can go ahead and rinse all the shampoo out of her tail as thoroughly as possible. Next, we can take our conditioner and work this into her tail just like we did with the shampoo. With horses, conditioner is made for their mane and tail, not for the rest of their body. That being said, you can also work some conditioner into their mane during this time, especially if they have a longer or thicker mane that's harder to brush out. Now we're going to do our final rinse on her tail, making sure we get all the conditioner out, since like we mentioned before, anything that's left can leave itchy skin that can cause them to rub out their hair. You can use your hand here to help scrub out the conditioner and check for any suds. If you're getting ready for a show, you might find shampoo that's specially made for whitening their coat. This you can squirt directly onto a sponge and scrub on any white areas of their body. If you're bathing a gray horse, this can actually be used on their whole body. And then of course we want to rinse it off thoroughly. When it's time to let the horse dry, you can put them in the cross ties in the sun if they'll stand patiently, or you can put some food in their stall to prevent them from rolling. There's nothing worse than a horse that rolls in the dirt right after you give them a bath. While Blue is drying, we're going to use some Detangler in her mane and tail, which you can find in the tack room. We're going to work a small to moderate amount through, and then we can brush it out. Something important I do want to point out here is that we do have a rule at Ride On not to brush out horses' tails without asking an instructor first. This is just because the more we brush out their tails, especially if done incorrectly, the more hair gets pulled out of their tails. So here I'm going to demonstrate how to brush out a horse's tail. Just like your own hair, you want to start at the bottom and work your way to the top, being very mindful that you're not pulling out any hair. Once you've got the bottom portion combed out, you can start to take small pieces of their whole tail and brush them through until the brush is able to glide through their hair smoothly. Check your brush frequently, and if you don't see much hair on it, that's a good indication that you're doing it correctly. Keep all these same things in mind when you're brushing out their mane, especially if they have a longer or thicker mane. Another rule in the barn, never use scissors to cut a horse's hair. Things can go badly quickly, and horse's hair takes a very long time to grow back. A horse's tail should go just about to where their fetlock is, but this is something an instructor will trim if needed. And finally, if the horse's face needs to be cleaned, you can use a wet rag or even a dry shampoo if you have some in the tack room. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.